Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast on Think Brightly Than Stars. Our last podcast was really interesting and fun, but I want this latest episode to be a lot more compelling yet informative. I want our listeners to not only gain something about personal and lifestyle thing, but can also acquire knowledge from this podcast. So that is why today we will explore a principle that highlights the power of learners producing their own language, and that principle is Merrill's Swing output hypothesis.
In this episode, we will explain the theory, show how it connects to teaching, and maybe even share classroom activity ideas and even add a fun mini role play as to engage those students and professors who might be listening right now. Let's dive right in.
Kim, while many people think that language learning is all about listening and reading, Swain reminds us that speaking and writing are just as important, maybe even more. In other words, to really learn a language, we need to go beyond input. Learners must try to use the language themselves.
You're right. I actually heard people say to learn English, just watch movies or listen to songs. That's true to some extent, but it is not enough. Real learning happens when you produce the language yourself, when you speak it with other people, write it through notes, or post it on social media, and even make mistakes with it.
You know what? I have actually read this theory before we put up this podcast because it really piqued my interest. So, the output hypothesis was introduced by Merrill Swain in 1985 and later refined in 2005. She argued that producing language is not just practice, it's actually a necessary condition for learning.
Oh, I have never heard of that. Why?
Because output helps learners in three big ways. First, they notice gaps in their knowledge. Second, they test out hypotheses about grammar or vocabulary. And lastly, they get feedback which helps them improve. So think about this. If a learner says she go to school yesterday, they immediately notice something feels wrong about the sentence. Or if a classmate corrects them about it, that's when they discover the right form. She went to school yesterday. That tiny struggle is exactly where learning happens.
Oh, all right. So Swain is telling us that input is important, but without output, learners miss the chance to truly test and refine what they know. In short, if you want to learn a language, you have to use it.
Absolutely right, Kim. See, you are keeping up with me. Actually, what we are doing right now is just like the theory. I'm testing my knowledge of it, while you are the one that is either correcting or adding insights. Isn't it great? We are actually learning while doing a podcast out of it.
Right. Now, how does this link to some teaching approaches so we can help our students out there understand this?
There are two approaches. Let's start with CLT or communicative learning teaching. CLT is basically about helping learners become confident communicators. So think about it. What's communication without output? You can just sit in silence and hope to get better at English. You have to use it.
Okay, from what I can understand, we need to ask questions, share, or even crack jokes. Is that it?
Yes, what matters is that you're expressing meaning. Now, with TBLT or task based language teaching, it goes even further. TBLT says, let's not just talk about language, let's actually do things with it.
Okay, in this case, students needs to be creative and directive, like when planning a class event or writing a letter to administration office of the school. Is that it?
Yes, each of those tasks forces learners to produce language in authentic, purposeful ways.
That makes sense. Now we are really grasping the main thought of this theory. But I am wondering, how can teachers actually use the output hypothesis in class while applying the modern use of technology? Because honestly, technology is ever changing and theory is nothing if we can't apply it.
Good question. Let's start with Facebook. The most used social media platforms nowadays. Imagine a teacher sends a link in your class GC, which directs you to a Facebook post from your official school page announcing an essay contest. Students then write their own short entries in English and post them as comments for submission. Not only do they practice writing, but they also see how others use the language.
Exactly. That's authentic output right there. And it makes students feel like their writing matters because it is part of something big, not just another classroom exercise. But what about during discussions?
You know what? We can also integrate Twitter, or shall I say X. Imagine, students are shown a tweet from Pag-asa. Breaking heavy rains expected tomorrow. Classes are suspended. Stay safe. After reading it, the class will be asked real time to write their own two-sentence tweets giving safety tips. Then they share them with a partner for feedback.
I can already hear students debating which is clearer. Bring your own umbrella or don't forget umbrellas. That's them noticing language and improving it in the process.
Right? They're learning while applying the theory of output hypothesis. They evaluate, identify gaps, and refine the language. I can also visualize the use of TikTok. This one is always a hit. Students can create a quick 30-second TikTok video teaching something small like three polite ways to say no in English. They write the script, act it out, and present it to the class. See, it's just a short but is creative and it encourages them to produce language.
Hmm. I think we can also integrate Canva. Students can work in a group to design a campaign poster, maybe about voting wisely or practicing suffrage. They can add a slogan and a few lines of explanation, then present it. And tada! A creative output in writing and speaking.
Yes, so whether it's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, or Canva, the goal is the same to make students produce language in ways that are modern, engaging, and meaningful. Okay, now let's not end this podcast without something fun. I've got a meme right here, and we're going to do impromptu role play. Are you ready?
All right, let's see it.
Here, watch this. So the caption says, when I connected to Wi Fi, but it said Wi Fi connected, no internet access. Kim, try to react to it in English as if it just happened to you.
Seriously? Connected but no internet? That's like promising me pizza and giving me an empty box.
That's somewhat funny. And see, that's output happening in real time. You weren't thinking of grammar rules, you just reacted. That's the beauty of hypothesis. It pushes learners to express themselves naturally.
And honestly, using memes like this in class would get students talking instantly. They would laugh, they would complain, they would react, they would use the language.
Yes, that's exactly true. So, what did we learn today? Well, the output hypothesis is a big reminder that learning a language isn't just about listening and reading.
Right? It is also about producing, speaking, writing, commenting, posting, or presenting. That's how learners discover their gaps, test their knowledge, and actually improve.
And for those teachers and future teachers listening today, this is also a reminder that creating your materials shouldn't stop at giving input. You need to design activities that let students use the language, whether that's through social media, group task, or even fun role plays.
Because at the end of the day, if students don't use the language, they don't really own it. So let's give them those opportunities.
Yes, I totally agree. That's it for today episode of Think Brightly Than Stars. Thank you for tuning in, our dear listeners. Until next time, keep learning, keep producing, and keep shining brighter than stars.